How did entire families survive winters so cold that a single night outside could quietly kill a person before sunrise? Not soldiers. Not modern survival experts. Ordinary people. Children, elders, hunters, mothers carrying water through blizzards, men repairing roofs beneath collapsing snow while temperatures plunged far below freezing. For thousands of years across the northern regions of Europe, Siberia, Greenland, and North America, winter was not simply a season. It was a system of pressure that reshaped every aspect of human life. Food disappeared beneath snow. Rivers froze into barriers. Animals migrated or starved. Daylight shortened until entire communities lived mostly in darkness, lit only by flame. And yet archaeological evidence reveals something astonishing. Many northern societies did not merely survive these conditions. They adapted to them with an intelligence so effective that some ancient winter shelters outperformed poorly insulated modern cabins under similar conditions. Not through advanced technology, but through deep observation. Through generations of failure, adaptation, memory, and environmental understanding. Because hidden beneath bark walls, packed earth, smoke-darkened ceilings, and snow-covered roofs was a form of engineering few people today fully appreciate. The people of the ancient North discovered something modern civilization often forgets. Cold does not kill immediately. It slowly destroys systems. Energy systems, social systems, psychological systems, and eventually, biological systems. Survival depended on keeping every one of those systems functioning together at the same time. A weak fire could trigger exhaustion. Exhaustion caused mistakes. Mistakes wasted calories. Wasted calories weakened the body. Weakness slowed labor. And slow labor during winter could become fatal. Everything connected. That was the real battle. Not humans against winter, but humans against collapse. And the deeper researchers investigate these ancient shelters, the clearer one unsettling truth becomes. Many of the solutions developed thousands of years ago were not primitive at all. They were brutally efficient. Some were so efficient that versions of the same principles still appear today in Arctic military shelters, survival architecture, passive heating systems, and emergency cold weather engineering. But before ancient people learned how to master heat, they first had to understand why most shelters failed. Winter rarely killed dramatically. Most deaths began quietly. A little less warmth during the night. A little more moisture trapped in clothing. A little more exhaustion after gathering wood through deep snow. The human body loses heat constantly. Even while resting, warmth escapes through skin, breath, and contact with colder surfaces. In freezing conditions, that heat loss accelerates rapidly through wind, moisture, and exposure. Ancient communities did not know the scientific term hypothermia, but they understood exactly what it looked like. First came numb fingers, then slower reactions, then confusion, then fatigue so overwhelming that movement itself felt optional, and finally, sleep, the kind people never woke from. This is why northern survival was never simply about finding shelter. It was about controlling heat loss with ruthless precision. Small temporary shelters often failed catastrophically during prolonged winters because they lacked thermal stability. Thin walls allowed constant convective heat loss. Roof gaps leaked rising warmth into the freezing air above. Wind entered through cracks invisible during calmer weather. And the colder temperatures became, the more fuel was required, simply to maintain survivable interior conditions. That created another problem: calories. Every tree cut required energy. Every bundle of wood carried through snow burned calories already difficult to replace during winter scarcity. People trapped in inefficient shelters entered dangerous energy deficits quickly. Anthropologists studying Arctic and subarctic survival repeatedly observed the same pattern across cultures. The most successful winter shelters minimized wasted movement, wasted fuel, wasted heat, and wasted labor. Efficiency became survival. This realization slowly transformed architecture across the North. Communities began creating structures designed not for individual comfort, but for collective thermal survival. And that changed everything. In many northern societies, winter forced people closer together than modern life can easily imagine. Multiple generations often shared enclosed seasonal structures for months at a time. Fires burned continuously. Sleeping areas compressed tightly together. Tools, food, furs, smoke, moisture, and human breath filled confined spaces beneath heavy roofs darkened by soot. To outsiders, these shelters may appear overcrowded, but thermally, they were brilliant. Every human body produces heat. A resting adult emits roughly the same warmth as a small heater. Inside tightly insulated structures, dozens of occupants could significantly raise baseline interior temperatures simply through shared body heat alone. Communal living reduced exposed surface area per person. Shared fires reduced fuel consumption. Shared labor reduced individual exhaustion. And shared knowledge increased survival odds during emergencies. The shelter itself became a living machine powered by cooperation. Researchers reconstructing ancient longhouses and semi-subterranean dwellings discovered that interior temperatures could remain dramatically more stable than outside conditions, even during severe cold snaps. Earth-insulated walls reduced thermal fluctuation. Low ceilings trapped rising warmth closer to occupants. Layered bedding preserved body heat overnight. Nothing existed accidentally. Sleeping platforms were positioned carefully. Storage zones remained cooler but protected from freezing. Children stayed near the warmest areas. Entrances often acted as primitive cold traps that slowed icy airflow before it reached main living spaces. Some winter dwellings even included narrow tunnel-like entrances specifically designed to prevent dense freezing air from flooding the interior every time someone entered. These people were not merely building homes. They were engineering survivable climates. But maintaining warmth inside the shelter created another invisible danger. One capable of destroying the structure from within. The greatest threat inside many ancient winter shelters was not freezing air. It was moisture. Every breath released humidity. Wet boots carried snow indoors. Cooking fires produced vapor. Melting ice-soaked floors. And once moisture entered enclosed winter spaces, it became incredibly difficult to remove. Modern survival experts understand this well. Dampness is often more dangerous than cold itself. Moisture destroys insulation. Wet furs lose heat retention. Damp bedding accelerates thermal loss from the body. Condensation rots wood, weakens roofing, and encourages mold growth. Ancient builders fought this constantly. And, surprisingly, many developed sophisticated solutions long before formal engineering existed. Ventilation openings were carefully controlled depending on weather conditions. Smoke holes adjusted airflow while allowing some heat retention. Animal hides acted as flexible internal barriers against drafts. Raised sleeping platforms reduced contact with damp ground. Moss insulation absorbed moisture while sealing structural gaps. Some northern cultures even positioned fires specifically to create upward convection currents that carried smoke and humidity toward roof openings more efficiently. Again and again, these structures reveal something extraordinary. Ancient survival architecture evolved through practical experimentation with physics. No equations, no blueprints, no universities, just consequences. If a roof trapped too much moisture, people got sick. If ventilation removed too much heat, people froze. If smoke accumulated excessively, breathing became dangerous. Winter forced constant balance. And nowhere was that balance more important than around the fire itself. Inside the ancient winter shelter, fire became more than warmth. It became order. The fire controlled cooking schedules, sleep patterns, repairs, conversations, drying routines, tool making, even movement itself. When flames weakened, life slowed. Darkness thickened across the structure. Shadows deepened. Breath became visible inside the shelter. People instinctively gathered closer together as temperatures dropped hour by hour. But ancient winter fires were carefully managed systems. Huge, uncontrolled flames wasted fuel rapidly while filling enclosed shelters with smoke and dangerous gases. Communities surviving long winters could not afford inefficiency. Instead, many northern societies maintained slow-burning, low-oxygen fires designed to maximize heat while preserving fuel. Dense hardwood embers burned through the night beneath ash layers. Charcoal retained heat long after visible flames disappeared. Morning fires were often restarted from surviving coals rather than built from scratch. This mattered enormously. Igniting new fires repeatedly during freezing conditions consumed precious labor and dry materials. Preserving embers reduced workload while maintaining baseline warmth inside the structure. Archaeologists have uncovered deep charcoal deposits inside ancient winter dwellings, evidence of prolonged controlled fire use extending across entire cold seasons. And fuel storage became a survival system all its own. Dry wood required protection from snow and freezing moisture. Some communities stacked fuel beneath roof overhangs or inside protected corridors to ensure reliable combustion during storms. Because wet wood created smoke. Smoke reduced visibility. Smoke damaged lungs. And smoke forced ventilation that released heat into the freezing dark outside. Everything connected. Always. But eventually, winter brought another threat no fire alone could solve. Wait. Snow looks soft from a distance. Ancient people knew better. Wet snow, accumulating across roofs, can weigh hundreds of pounds within hours. Under severe storms, entire structures risked collapse beneath shifting pressure. This forced northern builders to rethink architecture itself. Rigid flat roofs failed too easily. So many winter shelters evolved toward curved forms, capable of distributing weight more evenly. Bent saplings became essential building materials across many forested regions because they flexed under pressure instead of snapping suddenly. Arched roofs transferred snow loads downward into the ground while reducing stress concentration along weak points. Curved structures also improved aerodynamics during storms. Wind flowed around rounded surfaces more smoothly than vertical walls, reducing structural strain while limiting cold air infiltration. Even snow itself became part of the insulation system. Packed snow surrounding exterior walls blocked wind and stabilized temperatures surprisingly well because snow contains trapped air pockets that slow heat transfer. In effect, winter shelters often use the environment against itself. The same snow capable of killing exposed travelers became insulation protecting the people inside. This principle appears repeatedly across northern cultures separated by enormous distances. Scandinavian turf houses, Inuit snow structures, subterranean pit houses, Siberian winter dwellings. Different materials, different traditions, yet all converging towards similar thermal strategies. Because the laws of physics remain the same for everyone. And physics does not care about culture. Only adaptation. Winter survival was not only physical, it was psychological. Months of confinement inside enclosed shelters reshaped behavior in ways modern people rarely experience. Outside, storms erased visibility. Deep snow absorbed sound. Forests became silent. Daylight faded early beneath gray skies. And inside the shelter, people lived constantly aware of the thin boundary separating warmth from death. The roof creaked under accumulating snow. Smoke drifted lower some nights than others. Fuel piles shrank slowly week after week. Wind forced itself through tiny cracks during blizzards. Every sound mattered. Every change mattered. Anthropologists studying isolated cold environment societies repeatedly observe how routine became essential for mental survival. Predictable schedules reduced stress and prevented conflict inside confined communal spaces. Tasks followed the rhythms of heat and light. Cooking during peak fire intensity. repairing tools near daylight openings, drying clothing during lower humidity periods, sleeping close together during extreme cold. Even storytelling served survival functions. Stories preserved memory, preserved identity, preserved emotional stability during months of darkness, and children learned constantly through observation. How to manage embers, how to repair bark coverings, how to recognize dangerous smoke buildup, how to ration fuel. Knowledge transferred not through formal education, but through repetition inside living systems built for endurance. Still, winter remained unforgiving. One structural failure could destroy everything in minutes. Ancient winter shelters operated close to survival limits. There was little margin for error. A neglected ember could ignite dry bark walls. A damaged roof could collapse beneath heavy snowfall. Improper food storage could attract rodents capable of contaminating precious supplies. A ventilation mistake could slowly poison occupants with smoke. Even simple exhaustion became dangerous. Modern studies on cold weather cognition show that prolonged exposure to freezing environments reduces decision-making ability, coordination, and reaction speed. Fatigue compounds rapidly when calories remain limited and sleep quality declines. Ancient people experienced these pressures constantly. This is one reason communal living became so important. Shared awareness increased safety. People monitored fires together. Repairs happened collectively. Storm damage triggered immediate coordinated responses. Extra poles, bark sheets, and insulation materials were often stored nearby specifically for emergency structural repairs during blizzards. Archaeological evidence from long-occupied winter sites reveals repeated rebuilding, reinforcement, and modification over generations. These structures evolved continuously because survival depended on adaptation. Nothing remained permanent. Wood decayed. Roofs leaked. Smoke blackened interiors. Materials required replacement constantly. But perhaps that impermanence itself became part of the survival strategy. Ancient northern communities did not build for immortality. They built for continuity, for getting through one more winter, then another, then another. And over time, those repeated winters shaped entire cultures. Today, many people imagine ancient shelters as crude improvisations built by desperate survivors. But modern reconstructions reveal something far more impressive. These structures often embodied principles still used in cold weather engineering today. Thermal mass, airflow regulation, insulation, layering, load distribution, compartmentalization, heat zoning, energy conservation, even passive heating. Without modern science, ancient builders gradually discovered practical solutions through direct environmental feedback. Every winter acted like an experiment with immediate consequences. Weak designs disappeared. Effective designs survived. This process refined architecture across generations until some northern shelters became astonishingly efficient within their environmental limitations. And perhaps the most remarkable part is this. Many of these systems emerged independently across unrelated cultures facing similar climates. Because survival under extreme cold always drives humans toward the same truths. Protect heat, control moisture, reduce exposure, store energy, work together, stay disciplined. The farther temperatures fall, the less room exists for illusion. Winter strips life down to essentials. And those essentials reveal what human survival has always depended on beneath civilization itself. When spring finally arrived, the world changed again. Ice weakened. Snow collapsed into slush. Rivers moved beneath breaking surfaces. Longer daylight returned across the north. And many winter shelters slowly emptied as people dispersed into seasonal camps, hunting grounds, fishing areas, and lighter dwellings better suited for mobility. But the knowledge remained. The repaired roof, the improved entrance design, the better placement of sleeping platforms, the stronger insulation layers. Each winter left behind lessons written directly into architecture. That is what these ancient shelters truly represent. Not primitive huts, not temporary survival camps, but physical records of accumulated human adaptation. Every beam, every fire pit, every bark layer, every smoke-blackened ceiling, all carrying memories of people who learned, slowly and painfully, how to survive conditions capable of destroying unprepared human beings in days. And perhaps that is why these structures still fascinate us now. Because they expose a version of humanity stripped of distraction, no excess, no luxury, no illusion of control. Only heat, darkness, hunger, weather, labor, cooperation, and time. The ancient North understood something modern civilization often forgets. Comfort is fragile. Systems matter. And survival has always depended less on power than on discipline, adaptation, and the ability to work together under pressure. Maybe that is the real reason these shelters endured through centuries of snow and silence. They were never simply buildings. They were collective survival made visible. And somewhere beneath frozen forests, buried earth, collapsed roofs, and layers of charcoal, the evidence still remains. Proof that long before modern technology, human beings were already mastering winter. If you enjoy exploring the forgotten engineering, survival psychology, and hidden realities of the ancient world, subscribe to Shadows of Valhalla, where history is not treated as myth, but as the story of how human beings endured against impossible environments.